Good afternoon, everyone, Miami community newspapers, and everyone listening to us. My name is Danielle Dubuc-Whitman, Executive Director of FCC USA, and today we have an amazing guest, which is Florida State Senator Ana Maria Rodriguez, who represents District 40,
Yes.
and also an FCC USA board member.
Yes.
And it's incredible to have you here. I know that you're familiar with this Grant Miller, Michael Miller, all the family here. So it's super cool to have you here. What an honor to have you here.
Well, Danielle, it's an honor to be with you and to call you my friend, first and foremost, and to be here at Community Newspapers, which I have a tremendous respect and gratitude for the Miller family for everything they've done for so many decades here in our community, and being just good stewards of information and just making sure that our community continues going in the right direction. So I want to thank them for hosting us here today.
I love it. I love it. So one of the things that I do is before that we start the interview or just a chat, I share a little bit about how I met the person, the guest. And so this is something that once I met Senator, you were state representative back then. This was 2008, 2019. It was Columbia Day, right? That Senator Tadeo used to do that. So Colombian business people, they would travel and they would meet their legislators. I was part of it. And I remember someone told me, oh, you have Senator State Representative Ana Maria Rodriguez. She represents where you live. And then we had a conversation, and it was a very deep conversation, kind of like I actually opened up on... I remember the way you listened, no interruption. You sat down. You were so empathetic. Your body language, everything. I was like, wow. And then after that, you're like, here's my number. Whatever you need, I'm here. And then you would follow up. How's this going? How is that going? You know, like, you were so incredible. Not only with me, but also with whatever community-driven initiative I was doing at the time. You were always like, how can I help? How can I be of service? So I think, of course, I'm one of the many people that can say that, because I know you have a tribe of people that have lived that with you. And I think that is so beautiful and so rare. It's hard to have people that have like the heart and the strategy and that get, things done and also show that they care. So I wanted to say that was really beautiful, how we met and how we created that friendship. And then to see along the way everything that you've done from there to now is incredible. And to have you now as one of our board members and advocate, I mean, what you do for District 40 South Dade is incredible. So I'm happy to have you here.
Well, Danielle, thank you for going into the beginnings of when we met and how, just to give our viewers a little background and context, Columbia Day was an event that, as you said, Senator Tadeo would host when she was in the Senate, and basically brought together leaders from the Colombian community. And even though my parents are Cuban and I was born in the United States, my husband is Colombian. And so I feel very connected to the Colombian community, and obviously my children as well. So our family loves Colombian culture, and we embrace it. And we were just so delighted to have a Columbia Day at the Capitol. So that was a very fun. But as you said, when you're in public service and you're someone who not only holds a title of, senator or state representative or commissioner, whatever your title is, with that comes a great responsibility. And I think when people run for office and they, say, okay, I want to have that title, or I want to me, it's like, okay, you're giving up a part of your life, and you are a public servant, really. To me, the word politician sometimes has a negative connotation, because you feel, sometimes politicians is like they're in it for the wrong reasons. I think a true public servant has to listen more than they speak. They have to remember things that most people kind of forget, because you hear so many stories. But I think a good public servant is someone who not only listens to the people, but also follows through with actions and says, okay, I'm hearing you, I see you, what can I do to help you? And so you always have to, in every aspect of your life, whether it's with your children, your colleagues, your professional colleagues, your constituents, or just anyone that needs help, and they come to you because you're in a position of power. They say, oh, this person holds a title, they hold a powerful position, and they come asking for assistance, you have to be ready and willing to help them and do whatever it takes to, to get them the solutions that they're looking for.
Wow. And I don't know how you do it, because you receive requests all day. It's listening to people with problems, right? Every time you're in session in the middle of so many things going on, at a local level, at a state level. So you hear all these things. I don't know how you do it. I know you have a great team, and so I always think that people like you have to have a greater purpose, right? So I wanted to go to, which, by the way, before I go there, our founder and chairman met you as well, Samuel Asut, at Columbia Day, because FCC started in Columbia. So I think that, we have to bring that back. Yes. Okay. So I was going to say, when you were born in Miami, right? Raised, when along the way, when you're like, is it middle school, high school, that you're like, you know what? I really want to do this, this, and this. Who were kind of like your mentors when you were younger? Okay. Like middle school.
So when I was younger, my parents have had a great influence, as well as my grandparents, who are no longer with us, but they're with us in spirit. They were extremely influential. And I think a lot of people who came to this country with nothing and decided to start a new life in a free country, because Cuba is obviously a communist regime. They basically said, my parents said, okay, we're going to give back to this country. We are not going to take from this country. We came here seeking freedom, not seeking any giveaways. Right. We don't want the country to give us things. We want to establish ourselves and be people who give back to our country. So my parents obviously have a big role in my job as a public servant. I also think I can mention specific names of people who helped me along the way. I have Roemi Membiela, who I worked with when I was a college student. Phyllis Oders, I worked with her at Baptist when she retired, but she's a good friend and knows the Millers very well. And I have to mention my mentor, my dear friend, who also, is no longer with us, Bob Levy. Bob was a very, very loved person in our community. He had a lot of pro bono clients in Tallahassee. He just took, if he cared about your cause and you said, listen, I don't have any money to pay you, but I want you to advocate for me. Bob taught me that not everything is about money. You have to help people and just make sure that their needs are met. And I think that's important, to have those leaders and examples as a young person that show you that, it's really not about money. It's about helping lift up the community and make sure that all boats rise. And part of that is giving of your free time and giving of your time, talents, and treasures to people who maybe can't afford to pay for that type of assistance in the advocacy space. Obviously, as an elected official, you do it because you're an elected official. But I think having good mentors and good leaders as examples of what you want to aspire to be. In the elected space, I would say leaders like Ileana Ross-Layton, as a woman who served in Congress for many decades and in the state Senate as well, in the state House. She's someone who I look up to and admire. The late Lincoln Diaz-Balart, who we just lost very recently, he was a tremendous pillar of the Cuban exile community and of all Hispanics, really. He helped Nicaraguans. He helped all Hispanics in their search for freedom.
He left a legacy. Right?
He left a tremendous legacy. So I would say, those are people who I looked up to and inspired me on my public service journey.
So where do you go to high school? You're in Lourdes, right?
Yes.
And then after you say, okay, I'm going to study communication. What is that? You went to communication, but then you start, I think, working for Baptist.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So that's interesting how, I think as our childhood evolves, I never saw myself running for office. That was something that it was an opportunity and I want to mention his name too, because he was the one who got me to run for office the first time, which was J.C. Bermudez, Commissioner Bermudez, who was the mayor of Doral at the time. And there was an open council seat. And J.C. was so insistent and so persistent in my journey, because he said, I really want you to serve in the city council. and now he's a county commissioner and he's doing a great job there. So I have to thank him, because if it wasn't for him, I would have never run in the first place. Yeah. So that started in 2010 when I ran the first time for the city council. Yeah. But every journey is different. As you said, I went to FIU. I have a bachelor's in communication. I later got a master's degree from Nova in leadership. Nice. And but never did I think that I would, actually, again, run for office, because I was always behind the scenes. I was always helping other candidates. I was involved in advocacy with Bob Levy. And so I always wanted to help good people get elected, right? And so you learn about candidates, you learn about whether Republican or Democrat or independent, you just want good people serving in office, mm-hmm. and regardless of their affiliation. And that was the way I was brought up, and so that, I think that's part of the reason why today I get along great with Democrats and Republicans. And no matter what the party affiliation, I think, good public servants, we have different ways of getting to the end result, but as long as we collaborate and work together for the common good of the whole community, that's what people want. People don't want to see antagonism. They don't want to see fighting, whether it's at the national level or the state level or even here at the local level. Sometimes disagreements are necessary, and sometimes they escalate, and sometimes you have to have these really important discussions. But my philosophy and my style has always been, I don't know, let's try to collaborate and not,
with dignity and
right,
with
exactly.
respect. And I think you've always, when I've seen you,
mm-hmm.
I think you have something, you make people feel heard, seen, mm-hmm. understood, even if you don't agree with them. But that is a skill set that I think every public servant should develop. Some people have it naturally. Some people have to work on it. Mm-hmm. But I always think, at the end of the day, do we want to be right, or do we want to have results? So, right. So sometimes we're like, no, this is the, so there's a lot of negotiation that has to take place.
Yes, there is. And also, Danielle, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I will share something that I shared with someone earlier today at another meeting. I said, it's so interesting when you don't care who gets the credit for the outcome, how many great things can be accomplished. If you don't really care about having your name or saying, oh, I did this, or and I tell people, I don't care if I get credit or I don't get credit, as long as it gets done. That's all we need. And the person who said that was Ronald Reagan. President Reagan was, and he was a very successful president and a great leader for our country. But that's a very interesting philosophy that I don't think enough people apply to their daily lives.
It's hard, but even you see it. I mean, we can take it to like when we were with FCC with our kids. We always tell them sports, like really soccer in particular, from any other sport, is like about like radical collaboration. You have to, it's not about one player doing everything. You have to, everyone understands, okay, yo soy delantero, I'm the goalie, I'm the goalkeeper, let's do this. We're all, it's not about like, oh, who takes the credit. It's like, we're a team and we're going to make this.
That's right.
Right. And so this is something that we have to, I think, model, over and over again to our youth. So I want to go back to, because it seems like, okay, you went gradually in all these positions and learning. So can you share with me a point in time where you were like, oh my God, this is really tough? Like a point in time that you felt like, whether it was emotionally painful, and it doesn't have to be necessarily professional, it has to be along the way, something that happened that you felt like, if it weren't for other people who came up and helped, whether it's a mentor or a family member, like what did you do in that moment, how to get out of it, or how to navigate those challenges?
So one of the biggest challenges I had was when I had my first son. And I was actually already on the city council, but I had a job, my day job, because as elected officials, you don't really make enough money. You need to have a regular job, right?
Well, I have to say that because a lot of people think that senators, elected officials make so much money, and they like, it's ridiculous. It's $29,000 a year or something like that.
That's right. That's what we get paid. Yeah. So anyway, so I was working at a company, which shall remain nameless at the moment, but I was working there, and I learned that, and I assumed that there was a maternity policy, like in the United States. Like I thought everyone who had a baby could take 3 or 4 weeks off automatically just for being a new parent. And so I learned that very quickly that was not the case. And so within 2 weeks of giving birth, I had to go back to work because otherwise they were going to post my position. It was one of those and I wasn't in trouble with my job. I hadn't done anything wrong. That was just, it was one of those things where
that's how
it was. I didn't have enough vacation time or sick time accumulated. So they were like, well, you just started. I had just gotten pregnant like right when I started working there. And so I learned very quickly that needed to change in this world. I thought, let me do something about it. So I filed an ordinance in the city of Doral that would require the city employees, all city employees who were either expecting parents, who were adopting a child, and it was for women or men, right, who wanted to have a family, could take up to 4 weeks of paid parental leave. And so I championed that initiative. Nice. The first person who did it at the county level was Juan Carlos Zapata, who was a Colombian commissioner at Miami-Dade County. He did it, and then the city of Doral was the first municipality that did it because of, and I followed Juan Carlos's example, basically. And after Doral, we did it in multiple other, Palmetto Bay did it and others. So I'm very proud of that because it was a very difficult time for me as a new mom to have to go back to work so quickly. But I think I turned a negative into a positive. And I think it helped other women and men who are wanting to have a family in spending a little extra time with their newborns or their new children, because that's a very critical time. People don't realize that when you're a new parent and that child was just born or just, you need to have those first few weeks of bonding. It makes a tremendous difference in their development.
And the attachment, like everything is attachment.
Everything. So my husband was very instrumental, and obviously he was like Mr. Mom. And then my mother-in-law came from Colombia, and she stayed like about a month at my house with us, helping us, with all the new mom things. And she was wonderful. And I'm very blessed to have a great family. But that was a tough time. That was a challenging time for me personally and professionally, but we got through it. And eventually I moved on to a different job, and everything.
And then you had a second baby.
And I had a second baby, and then I went from city council to state house and then state senate. So it all worked out in the end. But I sympathize with people who are trying to do a work-life balance and they're trying to start a family, or even us that we have kids that are a little older. I know yours are a little younger than mine, but we're all the struggle is real, as they say. And trying to be a successful professional and be a good parent and be a person who also is a public servant and does it's very challenging. But I think with the right team, as you said, in my Senate capacity, I have 4 people who work with me. I have Luke, Victor, Paloma, and Marlene, who are amazing people, and they all have a role and they all execute extremely well. And so at home, I have my husband, my kids who are now a little older. Eros is 12. And Hermes is 11. And Eros, they went with me for spring break to Tallahassee, and they were in my office. But my older son was a page in the Florida House of Representatives. And that was such a delight to see my son serving in the chamber where I served in the House. It was like a full circle moment. And
I saw the pictures.
Yes. And I don't know if my kids are going to ever have a role in a public life or as public servants, but my husband is a city councilman in Homestead, and I'm very proud of him and the work he's doing. But I want them to see that, and I think they are seeing that, giving back should be a way of life. It shouldn't be like, and you don't have to be an elected official. And I always tell people, who say, I want to run for office. I'm like, look, run for office, but you have to have a stomach to run for office. It is difficult. Okay, what you see now is like you see, Ana Maria's, it's like a shiny object. You're like, but it was not easy to get here. It was hard. Elections are very nasty, very competitive. People say things about you that are not true. People send mailers with pictures of you, like you were having a cup of coffee and it looks like you're having an alcoholic beverage. So they're trying to make you look like, and there's nothing wrong, by the way, with having an alcoholic beverage, right? But, those are the types of things that you don't anticipate, but they always happen. And people always try to, find ways to weaken you, to make you, look bad, to make you look inept. And that's the world we live in. So I tell people, your service to our community doesn't have to be as an elected official. You can also serve through the boards, through FCC, which I'm honored to be a part of. But all of us who are on the FCC board, we're all serving. We're all helping children to get access to sports, to soccer, who perhaps don't have the funding or they don't have the resources in their family to pay to be involved in this type of sport. Right. We want to create access for families. And I think that's a beautiful thing, is to help people who don't have access have an entry point into the sports.
I love it. And I love the fact that you took your kids as early, because you're modeling to them and you have that experience. One of the things that we do a lot, we have the FCC pathway, which is a leadership where they can come in as volunteers or become interns or become staff. So we have a lot of young people in our staff who started in their middle school or in high school, and they stayed the path, and now they're at FIU or studying at Miami-Dade College, and they study in the morning, and in the afternoon they're working, mentoring, coaching others. But they started the program years ago within the pipeline. So I wanted to ask you, for youth, what would be 3 tips, advice that you would give? Like, let's say that this is all full of young leaders, young coaches. What advice would you give them? 3 advice that you would give your children as well.
So advice that I would give to young people, and my children included, would be, time goes by faster than you think. You think that because you're young, that time is going very slow and everything seems like it's forever and you're never going to get to be 40 or 50 or, it's like I'm 47 and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I blink, and I remember meeting. Thank you. No, we look great. We look great. But I'm saying, like, time goes by quickly. So don't waste it. Don't waste it thinking, oh, I'm going to, just, take a year off, or not saying that that's, if that's something you feel like you must do, then do it. Okay. But the importance of valuing time. I would also say another good tip is every relationship you make, no matter at what stage of your life, whether it's elementary school, high school, working at Publix, working at McDonald's, like you just have like a little job and you think, oh, it's not that important. Every person you meet in every aspect of your life is someone that could potentially be around you for the rest of your life. So don't burn bridges. Don't create situations where you're, creating enemies. Try to always end things on a positive note. Let's say you find another job and you move to a different job. End things well with your previous employer. Give 2 weeks notice. Don't think that you can just mistreat people or do things and it's not going to come back to haunt you, because it eventually will come back to haunt you. And I guess the third piece of advice would be just enjoy whatever you're doing, even if it seems like it's not your dream job at the moment. Whatever job you have, make the most of it and enjoy and learn as much as you can, because it's tied to the thing I just said before. But everything you learn in your life, every job, every experience will get you some skill set that you need for the rest of your life. I'll give you an example. When I was in my late teens, early 20s, for about 6 years, I worked at Delta Airlines in Coral Gables. They used to have an office there many years ago. A lot of people in our community worked there. And it was one of those things where I just happened to, I got to travel the world. I didn't pay because, it's one of the benefits of working for an airline. It's good. But I learned about customer service skills. I learned how to de-escalate when people are irate, when people come to you and they're like, oh my gosh, my flight just got canceled. And you're like, but you learn how to deal with people who are upset. And in politics, that's helped me a lot, because people call me,
them, right?
You validate them. You're like, okay, I'm here to help you. And then you bring them down. And then by the time you finish your phone call, they're like, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. So anyway, and before we finish, I do want to mention one person who I met when I was very young, and I'm so sad because he's not with us anymore, which was Mark Trowbridge. And I met Mark. I met Mark because Mark and I used to volunteer at the Lipton, which was the tennis tournament in Key Biscayne. It's now called the Miami Open. And I know, and now it's over at Miami Gardens at the Hard Rock Stadium. But I met Mark when I was very, very young, and I never knew and never thought of the impact that person would have on my life. And I later saw Mark again at Leadership Miami.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And then I saw him, of course, in the Coral Gables Chamber, but our paths were always intertwining. And so who would have thought that a person that I met when I was in my late teens volunteering for a tennis tournament was someone that I would still know up until the moment he passed, and had a tremendous impact on the positivity. And I think that's the key thing, is for people to always have a positive mental attitude in their life, and they will always be much more successful and much more effective in whatever they do.
I love that. I love that. And what you shared about not only the human capital, but the intentionality of like how you use that time and how you build those relationships. And speaking of Mark was one of the first ones to support us when we had our first corporate soccer tournament, which I know you went to.
Yes, and he was there, and that's why I mentioned him.
Yes, he would champion for so many of us, and he was just like, he was an extraordinary person. And I love that you were able to kind of like connect the dots.
Yes.
And also what you just shared about that skill of listening, validating, de-escalating the situation. It's so amazing. So I loved having this time with you. I wish I could have more time with you, but it's time to zero.
We have lots of time off camera.
Off camera. Falta un cafecito aquí.
Yes.
It was a privilege to have, and an honor to have you, and super cool to have you, Senator.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Love
you
so much for
Thank
everything. And I'm so happy that you get to be on our board and that you get to represent District 40.
Thank you.
With so much honor. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.